The stars are right, and that means it's time for another episode of The Whisper in Darkness. I'm your host, the Man from Lang. Thank you very much for joining me today. On this episode, we are reviewing the Survivor cards in the Innsmouth Conspiracy, the 6th deluxe expansion for the Arkham Horror LCG. There are spoilers throughout if you care about that sort of thing. If you enjoy what you hear, remember to like, comment, and subscribe. Before we get started, I'd like to thank the patrons of this channel for their tremendous support. The Arkham Horror LCG community is amazing, and these people have gone above and beyond to bring you content like these player card reviews. If you'd like to see your name up on this list, head over to patreon.com, sign up for a tier of your choice, and claim your rewards. That would be awesome. Without further ado, let's get started. The first Survivor card in the pack is Token of Faith. It is a 2-cost asset with an intellect skill icon, the item and charm traits. It has the response after a skill test ends in which one or more cursed or auto-fail tokens were revealed. Exhaust Token of Faith. Add that many blessed tokens to the Chaos bag. This the Token of Faith takes up an accessory slot. What's your impression of this one, Nate?
I think given our luck in the amount of auto-fails that we seem to draw, this could be pretty good. I think if you're playing the dedicated blessed token bag in Survivor, this is probably a pretty staple card for you. It's tough to say because if you don't have anyone putting curse tokens in the bag, this can be fairly minimal. But if you have somebody that's adding curse tokens and you're kind of playing this like seesaw effect with those two tokens, it could be pretty good. But I think overall, it's pretty middle of the road for me.
Yeah, I think this is probably primarily a multiplayer card where because you can trigger it after any skill test in multiplayer, regardless of where it happens on the board. So if you're if you've got 4 players at the table, and there are some curse tokens in the bag, then this is going to be much more likely to trigger than it would, say, in solo. Where I think if you're not playing cursed, you're probably not going to be adding many curse tokens to the bag to begin with. So you're basically waiting to draw auto fails. And I'm not sure I would play this just to add a blessed token every time I draw an auto fail. I know I draw a shit ton of auto fails, but I'm still not sure I would bother playing this card just to add a blessed token every time I drew an auto fail. I think it does synergize with as well with cards like Against All Odds and Grotesque Statue, Dark Prophecy, and Olive McBride that reveal more tokens. So if you've got somebody sitting at the table who's doing that, then you're just going to boost the odds that this thing is going to trigger more often. And it does sort of mitigate the impact of the curse tokens if too many end up in the bag and there isn't a good way to leverage them like we saw with Rite of Sanctification. If there doesn't turn out to be any sort of way of using those tokens, then this is probably the best way one of the better ways in multiplayer, I should say, to mitigate the impact of those tokens as you draw them. But I don't think it's worth the slot in solo.
Yeah, in solo, it's like you have to compare this card to Lucky Rabbit's Foot, which I think provide a very similar sort of effect. But drawing cards is always useful, whereas adding blessed tokens to the bag is only as useful as you draw them. So
yeah, it also Cherished Keepsake has is the accessory slot as well, is it not?
Yes, it is. Yep.
So yeah, it does have some pretty stiff competition for the accessory slot. I mean, even if you're looking at a Mystic Survivor, like Patrice or Agnes, like if you're adding maybe a couple curse tokens that way, I mean, they've got that competition for that accessory slot is going to be pretty stiff, and I don't think that this card necessarily is strong enough to bump out some of those cards. I mean, I was thinking about this card this morning, and I think if you're maybe playing a seeker survivor like Min, or a rogue survivor, or sorry, Min or Mandy. Mandy can also take some survivor cards, or if you're playing like a rogue survivor like Finn or Preston, and you add a few tokens to the bag, curse tokens to the bag, because you're playing Faustian Bargain or something like that, then this might be worthwhile to mitigate it in solo. But I still feel like the odds of drawing one or two tokens is so small anyway, that taking the action to play this is not going to be worth it.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. What would you rate it?
I think it's hard. I think in multiplayer it's probably a 0. I'd give it an Elder Thing though in solo.
Yeah, I'm inclined to agree. I think even in multiplayer, you have to have someone at the table dumping curse tokens into the bag, and that's all contingent on people actually revealing those tokens. So, it's also tough because it's got so much other stiff competition in the accessory slot for me. So
yeah, and I'd also wonder in multiplayer, if you are sitting at the table with a guy or girl who is playing a dedicated curse deck, and they're dumping tokens into the bag for a very specific purpose to leverage them to do other things, and you are sort of hampering their ability to do that by removing those curse tokens and replacing them with blessed tokens. They don't necessarily want that sort of card at the table. Mm-hmm. So I think it really depends on the situation in sort of the decks at the table in multiplayer, whether you'd want to play this or not. Because I know if I was playing a curse deck that was like, I'm going all in, and say like I want to translate the Cryptic Grimoire, I don't want somebody, every time I pull a token, they're like, oh, I can replace this. It's just like, no, I want that token in the bag, please. Mm-hmm. I mean, it is a response, so it is optional. It's not a forced effect, but then, I mean, why would you bother playing it if somebody is like, if you have this in your deck and you've got a person who's going all in on translating the Cryptic Grimoire? I mean, this is a dead draw at that point, right? Mm-hmm. So yeah, I think I'm gonna go with, I'll settle on Elder Sign. I'll let my solo player come to the fore. Possibly a 0 in certain multiplayer settings.
I think, like, if you were playing Tempt Fate and you just wanted blessed tokens, sure. But I think, yeah, apart from that, it's hard to sell for me.
Yeah. All right, the second card in the second survivor card is Keep Faith. It is a 2-cost event with a willpower skill icon, the Fortune and Bless traits. It is fast. You may play it during any free triggered ability window, and it simply adds 4 Bless tokens to the Chaos bag. I mean, if you want Bless tokens,
you got them.
I mean, theoretically, if you sit down at a table with a couple of survivors in multiplayer, you could have 10 Bless tokens in the bag before anybody takes their first turn. So I find it curious that this does have feature the traditional Sister Mary art, but Sister Mary cannot take this card, although Tommy Muldoon can. So if you want to try some of the blessed tech out of Guardian, this is I think Tommy is definitely going to be taking this card to pump the bag full of blessed tokens.
Yeah, I could see maybe even Yorick too, because he could play Rite of Sanctification, and then when he kills enemies, he can play assets. Right. And lower their cost. Yeah. So I could see that being pretty good too. Like, this is the best way to add blessed tokens to the bag in one huge burst. So
Yeah.
Like we don't have any other cards to compare this to, so I think this is, if you're playing a blessed deck, you want a card like this in the deck. So
Yeah, I think it's interesting. There are a couple of cards in this deluxe expansion that also have the fortune trait, which actually synergizes with Skid's O'Toole, the parallel version, which is interesting considering he's got he sort of could lean into to cursed as well with cards like Faustian Bargain or blessed. I mean, certainly a blessing wouldn't hurt during willpower tests. And
yeah, I think this card's pretty decent. What would you rate it?
I think it's an Elder Sign in the blessed deck for sure. I mean, there aren't that many ways of adding multiple tokens to the bag and at fast speed, and this is one of the best options, I think.
Yeah, I would agree with you there. It's definitely an Elder Sign in the blessed token bag deck or whatever. But then apart from that, it's not bad. If you have a way, if you're playing like on your own or something and you can play this for free, it's pretty good.
Yeah.
So
that's a good point.
Yeah,
I mean, Wendy could also use this with her amulet to play multiple. Like, you could play it, drop the amulet, play it again. I mean, 8 blessed tokens in the bag for 4 resources isn't the worst thing in the world, considering she has access to all that rogue card generation as well. Or sorry, resource generation.
Yeah, it's again, this is kind of a running theme for these reviews, is that it's hard to judge the merit of the blessed tokens without seeing all the other cards in the set.
Yeah. I think the valuation of these cards is going to change. I mean, between now and Mythos Pack 6, we're going to be getting, I mean, each class will be getting 12 plus cards, which could radically change the value of some of these of the cards in this particular set, because the value of those blessed and cursed tokens is going to change. Survivors are in kind of in a weird spot, because they're sort of the more while Guardians are just like, let's dump as many blessed tokens in the bag as possible. Survivors seem to be sort of they have access to both the cursed and blessed tokens, so I can see where some of these mitigation cards are coming in, like Token of Faith, so they can sort of play with all of them, although they don't seem to have any way to really leverage them at the moment, which is kind of sort of the idea of just dumping bless and curse tokens in the bag for the hell of it doesn't really appeal to me. But
yeah, I'm in the same boat. Like, it's cool if you draw it and you actually like pass a test with it, but apart from that, a lot of the time I draw blessed tokens, I'm already passing a test as it is. So
yeah, I think the way I play the game anyway, I'm usually aiming to be 2 up anyway, so a blessed token mitigates a -4, which it doesn't really do all that much. So but this if you want blessed tokens, then this is your go-to. So Elder Sign for Keep Faith. Is this the final? No, this is the 3rd card in the pack. This is Predestined. This one was spoiled by FFG's preview article way back in March. This is a skill. It has the Fortune and Blessed traits. Max 1 committed per skill test, and you may commit Predestined to any type of test. If this test fails, either add 2 Blessed tokens to the Chaos bag or remove 2 Curse tokens from the Chaos bag. So we've seen these types of cards before, these skills without skill icons, Take Heart being chief among them. Personally, I still prefer Take Heart over this. I don't think adding 2, at least in solo, adding 2 blessed tokens to the bag is not something I'm particularly interested in, and I'm probably not removing curse tokens. So, but maybe in an investigator like Min or Mandy, where you're adding a couple of curse tokens, or in Preston or Finn, it might be worthwhile.
Yeah, again, I think you have to be kind of dedicated to doing one or the other. It seems like if you want to remove curse tokens, then you're probably also playing Token of Faith, which means you're playing other cards that add them to the bag. And if you're playing with Bless tokens, then you're playing with Keep Faith too. And I think if you were to compare this like with Take Heart, it's going to be hard to find space in your deck for both.
Yeah.
Since they don't do anything on their own front. I mean, that being said, Stella likes failing tests to gain additional actions. So if you were playing some sort of like blessed Stella deck, maybe you would play this. But I think apart from that, it's hard to sell me on this card personally.
Yeah, it sort of feels like some of these cards are sort of intended for players who dabble in cursed and then are perhaps fearful of drawing that curse token at some point. And so these types of cards give you a way to sort of dabble with cursed without committing to it and then mitigating the curse tokens afterwards. But I guess it just depends on how much you fear those curse tokens. If you're not that worried about them, then playing this card is not necessary.
Yeah, I give this card probably a tentacle as of right now. Maybe an elder thing. It's definitely not high on my list.
Yeah, I think I'm gonna settle at elder thing. At least in solo, it just doesn't wow me. I guess just because for me anyway, having sat down and run some of the math on the odds of drawing blessed tokens and curse tokens, there's a very the odds are not in your favor in drawing them if there are only a couple in the bag. So playing a card like this to mitigate them is kind of like, well, a curse token is quite bad if you pull it, because you're probably going to fail that skill test. But who knows? You might want to fail it anyway. And like you said, Stella gets an extra action if she fails. So drawing a curse token for her might not be the worst thing in the world.
Mm-hmm. Compared
to, say, a blessed token, which doesn't synergize with her particularly well. So, yeah, I think elder thing. I'm not quite ready to throw this card under the bus and stamp it with an auto fail, but at least if I was playing solo and I have to choose this or Take Heart, I think Take Heart still takes the day. And again, it suffers from that same problem. If you're playing in multiplayer and somebody is trying to load up the bag with curse tokens, they don't want to have you pulling them out for them. So that is Predestined. The final card in the pack is Beloved. This is one of the two cards that I spoiled recently. It is a skill with a willpower, agility, and wild skill icon. It has the innate and blessed traits. If a blessed token is revealed during this test, you may remove Beloved from the game to replace that token's effect with the following. You automatically succeed. Do not reveal another token. Return this token to the Chaos bag after this test ends. So I did run the numbers, and depending on the number of blessed tokens in an Innsmouth conspiracy bag, this sort of caps out. I mean, if there's only one, you've only got a 4.76% chance of succeeding, or of automatically succeeding. And that goes all the way up to 33.33% if you can get 10 blessed tokens in the bag. But mostly your odds are hovering around 20%, which initially I was quite high on this card for that auto success, but the odds of drawing blessed tokens are not that good. So it's going to be hard to pull off that auto success unless you're really going into it. But I still love the icon spread on this card.
Yeah, the icon spread alone is what makes this card for me, because I feel like when you're drawing a blessed token, you're probably already passing that test anyway. So the ability on the card seems kind of moot when you consider that. But the icon spread is great, and having the innate trait also allows it to be useful in Silas and any deck that wants to play True Survivor, I think is the name of the card, right?
Yeah,
That lets
True Survivor 3. Yeah.
Yep.
Lets you recycle those skills from your discard pile, which is, yeah, I mean, the card pool has grown so much over the past few years that I'm often finding myself coming down to, like, when I'm picking skills for my deck, you're really looking for cards that have the most flexibility in terms of skill icons, unless you're playing, say, Min or Silas, who really play around with the skills. So you're really just trying to find the best bang for your buck, which is why I'm often still reaching for Unexpected Courage, because, I mean, you got 2 wild icons for whatever test you need them. Now, the willpower and agility skill icons are probably the 2 most common tests on treacheries. So having 2 willpower or 2 agility skill icons in a deck like Tommy, that's a great way to conserve some deck slots and still have the option of say, passing those willpower or agility skill tests on treacheries. Or if you need to make a sort of cheeky evade at some point in the game, you've got those agility skill icons that or you end up, say, at that there's that one location in the Arkham Woods that forces you to investigate with agility. You know, it's just nice to have those 2 agility skill icons there.
Yeah, absolutely. Like, if you were ever considering playing like manual dexterity or guts, you could trim the fat, so to speak, and just play this and have access to both those icons.
Yeah, and then of course, if you're playing somebody like Min, you can add another wild skill icon to this. So it's now you've got 3 willpower or 3 agility skill icons.
Or just 2 of anyone's stat.
Or just 2 of anyone's stat. Yeah, so it's an Unexpected Courage or a 3 of the other 2, that's pretty nice. Silas, of course, he can commit this and then pull it back to his hand if he doesn't like the looks of it, or turns out he doesn't need it. Which is and of course his willpower is only 2, so he is definitely could use willpower skill icons. And it does, if you do go the auto success route, it does return that blessed token to the bag. But I think you're right that, I mean, if you draw a blessed token, you're already probably going to succeed automatically. So the auto success on this isn't that valuable. I could definitely see it being good if you prefer to play on harder levels of difficulty, though, where drawing that blessed token is like, okay, I drew a blessed token, but there's still like -7s and 8s in the bag. That could potentially trip me up. So having this at your disposal would be a nice insurance on those important tests that you need to pass.
Yeah, or even a test that you just throw it in because it has a wild icon on it, and you just happen to draw a blessed token. Then this is super super sweet in those cases. But I think in most circumstances, you're just going to play it for 2 skill icons, and you're going to be fine with it. So I would give this card a +1. I think it's pretty good.
Yeah, I settle on +1 as well. It's definitely good, and of course you can play it if you want to try that auto success. You can play it with cards that you've got the Mystics who can play Olive and Grotesque Statue to reveal multiple tokens, and and that only improves your odds of finding one of those blessed tokens that's hiding in the bag. So a +1 for Beloved. That's going to do it for the Survivor cards in the Innsmouth Conspiracy. What is your final thoughts on these cards, Nate?
The Survivors are tough. I think overall the cards are very consistent in their theming. I know they're all about the blessed and the curse tokens. So it's hard to evaluate the cards without knowing what other cards are going to interact with those tokens and how they're going to interact. But I think overall the Survivors made out pretty well. I think Keep Faith and Beloved are solid additions. Predestined is definitely on the lower end of the list, and Token of Faith is, I think, definitely a multiplayer card, which is a format I don't get to play a lot of, but I think the Survivors made out pretty well in this box.
Yeah, I'd agree. I mean, Keep Faith is your go-to for adding blessed tokens to the bag, and in multiplayer you could play multiples of these and easily stuff the bag full of blessed tokens, and even if nobody at the table is trying to key off those blessed tokens, having 10 blessed tokens in the bag during a multiplayer game isn't going to be, I wouldn't say no to that. I mean, that's pretty nice. But it's also gives you the option of teaming up somebody like some of the Guardians who want to say use Rite of Sanctification. You can have them team up with a Survivor, or you can have somebody like Yorick just be able to play this and then play this as a free action, and then play Rite of Sanctification and just reduce the cost of four cards, which is, I mean, that's 8 resources right there. That's huge economy for the cost of a couple of cards, and one of which is a fast card. Token of Faith, I think, is probably for me the hardest one to evaluate, because I don't get to play multiplayer all that often, and I think in solo it's just not very useful, but I could see it being useful in certain situations. Again, I think that the designers have sort of given options to players who are like, oh my god, I've added a curse token to the bag, this is the worst thing in the world. And the Survivors give you a way to sort of mitigate that. But whether that mitigation is really necessary, I think is debatable. That's going to do it for this episode. If you enjoy what you hear, remember to like, comment, and subscribe. If you need to contact me, I can be reached at manfromlang@gmail.com. I am also on Twitter at manfromlang. Until the stars are right, keep your shotgun close and your elder sign closer. Take care out there, and happy investigating.